BYU is Iowa State bound, and the Cougars are looking to go 8-0. And the good news is it's a pretty simple game plan to do just that.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we preview BYU and Iowa State. BYU looking to finish the 2/3 way mark of the season before they enter a bye week at 8-0. How do they go about doing that? We'll dig into that. Then we're going to catch up with BYU defensive ends coach and special teams coordinator Kelly Poppinga, an exclusive one-on-one conversation. You'll hear from him about the Utah game, what they need to do against Iowa State, and also why BYU special teams are so darn good. You'll hear all of that ahead, and then we'll finish up today's show with our Big 12 big picks, looking around the rest of the conference as well as nationally at the weekend ahead in college football. It's all brought to you today by our friends over at Mazda. Now, Mazda's here for those who like to make every move count. Pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning when you do just that. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, all courtesy of Mazda, where they like to say, move and be moved. All right, so BYU, ranked 11th in the country, is knocking on the door of the top 10. They're also 7-0, one of just 6 teams across this great land that are undefeated at this point in the season. They are carrying a lot of weight on their shoulders because they are the favorite in the Big 12 for the time being by virtue of their undefeated start. Yes, I know that Cincinnati is also undefeated in Big 12 play, but they have a loss on the record to Nebraska. So you look at it, BYU is going for a major opportunity with the chance to move inside the top 10 and really assert themselves as a dominant force here in the Big 12, but standing in their way, the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, when the schedule came out, you guys, those who are everydayers and probably remember back that far, I said, looking at the schedule, it felt like to me this game against Iowa State was a scheduled loss for BYU, just by virtue of the fact that BYU would be coming off that rivalry game against Utah, and who knows how they would have fared at that point. And obviously how things played out last year in the aftermath of BYU winning that rivalry game and then summarily losing 2 straight games. So I looked at the schedule and I was fearful of BYU going to Ames in the circumstance. Well, that did not include, as it often does, the variables that play into all of this, mainly injuries and the like. Iowa State is a wounded animal right now, and it's not that any fault of their own. Injuries are inherent to the sport that we all love, speaking of college football. Guys want to play ball at the highest levels, but playing ball at the highest levels obviously includes the inherent risk of injury. And that's where Iowa State finds itself, because if you look at their player availability report, got a number of guys that could or should be on the shelf for this weekend's game. So I say all of that to say this. BYU should go into this game feeling pretty confident about themselves, despite our friends at FanDuel and other sports books out there rating BYU as an underdog. Iowa State's a little bit in desperation. When I mentioned the fact that they're a wounded animal, and that obviously plays into all of this. They want to bounce back. And if they were to beat BYU, they absolutely are right back in the thick of the Big 12 race, because they'd have a win over the leader in the clubhouse, and that would push them right back into the mix here, despite being 2-2 in the conference race. There are, I think, 11 teams within 2 games of the conference title race, and that in and of itself shows you how crazy this league is and why BYU, if they're capable of doing it, needs to keep themselves above the fray. Kalani Sitake likes to talk a lot about controlling the controllable. Well, you know how you control the controllable in this circumstance? You go out to Ames, Iowa, you run the ball down their throat time and time again, then you play action off of it, you get enough points, let's say 24 plus, which is one of the pillars that Bronco Mendenhall has always espoused, and history suggests that if you keep a team under 24 and you score over 24, usually you're going to win more football games than you're going to lose. BYU needs to understand what's at stake here. The reputation of this football program, the reputation of the Big 12, and all of that is riding on their shoulders. I know it sounds crazy to say for a team, as I mentioned, that is an underdog according to our friends at FanDuel and the sports books and the like, but that's exactly where BYU has thrived in this circumstance. They know that they're being disrespected nationally. They know that there's a lot of naysayers out there who think that BYU is just scraping by. Well, our good friend Spencer McLaughlin, I joined him yesterday on Locked On College Football. He says these are the know how to win or find a way to win Cougars, speaking of BYU. And that's exactly what they are. They're 18-2 in their past 20 games. They have proven time and time again over the past year plus to show an ability, uncanny as it is, just to find a way to win football games. And this game, yes, it's not going to be easy because Iowa State, in many respects, I'm going to spoil a little bit of a surprise here, but Kelly Poppinga says they look a lot like what BYU faced when it came to facing off against Stanford earlier this year. And what that means is they've got a decent quarterback. In fact, I think Rocco Becht is downright elite. I think he's a fantastic quarterback, but they use a lot of tight ends in their offense. And a lot of it's because of the injuries they've absorbed at wide receiver. And on the defense, they've lost a lot of the guys in the defensive secondary as well. So how do you go about defending this? Well, pull out your game plan from Stanford and make sure that those guys don't hurt you. Now, Abu Sama and Carson Hansen are very good running backs. They're obviously going to play a role in this. Carson Hansen is probable on the player availability report. We'll see if he's available in this game. But BYU, I think, has a good feel, or at least should have a good feel for the style they're going up against simply because they faced off against Stanford. I fully expect Iowa State to be able to execute what Stanford failed to execute against BYU and do so at a much higher level. And that's going to mean BYU is going to have to be on their game because Benjamin Brahmer, Gabe Burkle, I think it's also Tyler Moore. They're kind of the three tight ends, much like what Stanford threw, that are the focal point of the passing game here with the injuries they've absorbed at wide receiver. It is not going to be easy to go to Jack Trice Stadium because I think Iowa State, among the, I guess you call them the hateful eight, the original eight, whatever you want to call it, the holdovers from the old Big 12, Jack Trice Stadium has one of the best home field advantages in that group. And I'm saying that a lot of them don't have home field advantages because they do. But Iowa State fans, they're a unique fan base because they are tried and true, thick and thin. They are as diehard as any Cougar fan, I feel like. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the environment it looks like when BYU heads to Jack Trice tomorrow afternoon. It's also a day game for BYU. They haven't played a day game in almost a year now, since last season. They've been playing a lot of night games, and we all know that the Vampire Cougs, Cardiac Cougs, whatever you want to term them, they've been very good under the lights. How do they thrive now with a mid-afternoon kick? That's also a new adjustment for BYU. I look forward to all of this, but I think the game plan is pretty simple for BYU. Bottle up the tight ends. Make sure that guys like Rocco Becht, Abu Sama, Carson Hansen, the running game that Iowa State possesses, does not get the traction that they are looking to establish. Meanwhile, you establish your ground game. Let a guy like LJ Martin have 25 to 30 carries because he's proven very durable so far this year. Control the controllables. Speaking of the time of possession, the pace of this game. Let Bear Bachmeier cook with the QB run game and his play action ability and get out of Ames with that victory and sit at 8-0 entering a bye week. I think that the worst loss BYU could take right now would be this one because they'd be sitting on that loss for 2 weeks, getting ready for Texas Tech on the road 2 weeks away. You don't want to enter a bye week on a downer note. And that's also got to be something that BYU's weighing in the back of their mind is, hey, we cannot let this slip right now because a lot of the Big 12, with Texas Tech falling last week, there's been a perception out there that the Big 12 is, hey, they're cute and all, but they can't compete at the highest levels. Well, BYU is now carrying that banner as the undefeated team, having a sterling record intact. And to let it fall by the wayside right now would only give more ammunition to those talking heads out there who want nothing more than to denigrate and downgrade the Big 12 and obviously BYU by extension. So it's an interesting dynamic at play here because BYU carries a lot of pressure going into this matchup, all the while being a betting underdog. It's kind of an oxymoron in so many different ways, but I'm looking forward to this matchup. I think BYU is very, very capable of winning this game. Is it going to be easy? No. And quite frankly, I think every game for the foreseeable future on this docket for BYU, even this game against Iowa State, they're going to be the type of games that I'm going into thinking, okay, it's kind of a one-possession game. And in those type of scenarios, 2, 3, 4 key plays, turnovers and the like, can really tilt these games and make it one way or the other in terms of who comes out with the victory. So BYU, keys to the game, take care of the darn football. You got to make sure that you are plus in the margin because when BYU's been plus in the margin, they're routinely going to win those football games. Yes, they have won a couple of times this year being minus in the margin, but that's not an area you want to live in, because more often than not, that's going to catch up with you and cause you to lose games. I want to see LJ Martin run and run hard. I want to see some other running backs step up as well, whether it's Jovessa Demooney. My personal favorite is a guy like Preston Rex. I think Preston's been an absolute revelation this season. Despite all the injuries he's endured, he has proven to be a pretty versatile weapon, and I want to see more of that. Get the ball to Chase Roberts. Let Parker Kingston cook in both the run and pass game. And then obviously let Bear cook. And any of you have probably seen the shirt I'm wearing on YouTube today. My good friend David gave this to me last week when he saw me. And what that is, that's the Berserker 47, as he points out that in Nordic countries, the Viking age, well, Berserk, as you guys know, maybe you don't because I learned it myself, but Berserk comes from the Vikings. And what it means was Berserker. They thought that these guys who were the elite warriors, they were absolute just lunatics, probably a good term, that would go into battle. Well, they believe they became bears. So Berserker 47. There you go. So looking forward to seeing how Bear handles another road environment, but I don't worry about that kid anymore. He has proven to be a guy who doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, and road environments, no matter how hostile or crazy they may get, he has proven to be very, very adaptable to playing in those circumstances. So we'll see how it all shakes out, and I'll just say it right now. I've got BYU winning this game 31-24. That's where I think it sits, and that's where I think BYU gets out with a victory. They'll do just enough and obviously hold Iowa State down enough as well and go to 8-0. And should the weekend pan out the way I expect it to, BYU will be safely inside the top 10 entering their bye week in the rankings come next Monday. All right, coming up next, a guy who is going to have a key role in terms of coordinating, making sure BYU wins this game. Obviously, the special teams coordinator and now also defensive ends coach. That's Kelly Poppinga, a guy who knows a thing or three about playing BYU football, what it takes to win at a high level, and more importantly, he knows his players inside and out. What does he think it's going to take for BYU coming off this game against Utah and going into Iowa State to pull off another win? Well, he'll explain in an exclusive one-on-one conversation coming up next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Now, Mazda is here for you guys for the game moving the game forward, As those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward, I don't have to go very far. It's Bear Bachmeier's game-winning touchdown for BYU. What an elite play that was. The best part is he kept BYU moving forward all game long against their arch rival Utah. And the best part is he keeps the fans moving forward as well because they're absolutely in love with this freshman sensation. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. It's all courtesy of your friends over at Mazda, where they like to say, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us. Please continue to subscribe, rate, and review. Share this with your family and friends, and really tell them it's daily BYU-centric content you can't find anywhere else. And as always, it's a big thank you to the Locked On Podcast Network for having me here. As we like to say, it's your team every day. All right, time now to catch up with Kelly Poppinga. Now, we talked a lot about Utah, obviously, and the outcomes of that game, but then turn the attention to the Iowa State matchup this weekend, what he expects from his defensive ends unit, more importantly, also the special teams unit, which has been a weapon for BYU, but there's one key thing that Kelly Poppinga is looking for from BYU special teams, and you're going to hear all of that and a whole lot more coming up right now, right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Kelly, I want to start off looking back at Utah just for a moment. What did you feel like you guys did best in that game, on the edges in particular?
Yeah, I was pleased with the way that we were able to pressure the quarterback. And I think ultimately, being able to get a sack early in the game, I thought that was a huge play by Hunter. They had a little play action pass, and luckily for us, one of their old linemen actually tripped on the protection, and Hunter came clean. And he had to beat a running back, but they were trying to pull a guard, and he had fallen, and kind of just luck of the draw. Hunter had a good charge on the quarterback and got him. Intentional grounding, but that was a huge play, got him to second and long, and then we were able to get him to punt on that series. And then I think the ensuing drive was the drive that our offense ended up scoring after that. So I was very pleased with that. And then later on in the game, who was it? Tausili kind of had a couple rushes, a really good rush at the end of the game where it led to quarterback ended up throwing the ball away. I think he beat Fano on the left side right there. And so anyway, I was pleased with that. And then I just thought, Logan played tough. He's being super productive right now as far as just in the run game with tackles and setting the edge. And so for the most part, the issues wasn't so much in the box as out of the box, where they gave us some issues with their fly sweeps and some perimeter plays. But I thought, from tackle to tackle, we did a really good job stopping the running back runs and the quarterback runs for the most part.
How gratifying was it late in that game to see Tausili getting pressure with a 3-man alignment? Yeah,
it was great, man. Tausili's he's a really good player. He's coming along. He played the most he's played all year long, and we'll continue to use him in a certain role that he has, but he's earning other roles as well. But he's just he's one of our most dynamic pass rushers, and we just got to continue to see him progress, and he's progressing in the manner that we like. Now we just got to continue to do it in games.
Are you seeing the progression across the board? You mentioned Hunter Clegg getting a sack. You see Telmwe Payal's come in and made some plays the last couple of weeks. Are you seeing the progression from those young players?
Yeah, they're coming along. Smart guys. All of them are smart. And I think Nusi's role is going to continue to increase too as well. And so it's good. I think we've got really good young depth with a very veteran guy in Logan that's able to teach these guys the right way of how it's supposed to be done. And so very pleased with those 3 guys.
Looking ahead to Iowa State this week, you have a bye week coming up. Columbus mentioned the thing before, we're emptying the tank, just getting after it, and understanding you have some extra time off after this. What's the mentality going into this?
It's really no different than any other game, to be honest with you. I mean, this is the next game on our schedule. This is the biggest game on our schedule because it's the next one, and so it's just another team that's in our way, in our goal of winning at least playing in a Big 12 championship game is where we want to get to. And so Iowa State's a really good team. They're it's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere, last time they came here they put it on us, so we know what they're capable of, and they played in the conference championship game a year ago, so they're really good. They were ranked 12th or 13th a couple of weeks ago, so this is a very, very good football team that we're about ready to face. So we're going to have to play our best game of the year. Our preparation is going to have to be the best of the season, and we're going to have to continue on the track of getting takeaways, not turning the ball over, playing great field position with special teams, all those things that have helped us get to this point. It's going to be exciting. I'm excited to get the guys back on the road, kind of a us against the world mentality, and have a little chip on our shoulder. And, I think our guys have responded very well on the road this year.
Talking with Jay, he talked about that game against Iowa State a couple of years back. It's being like a growing up moment for this team. Understand, this is the week-to-week grind in the Big 12. Do you kind of have that same sentiment?
Oh yeah. I think after we go to West Virginia, and anybody can say whatever they want about West Virginia, but on the road at Arizona, then Utah, then on Iowa State, and then all those other teams after me, this is a grinder. But this is what we've wanted forever. This is what everybody's wanted, and we've got it right here in front of us, and now it's our job to take advantage of what we have in front of us, and see these succeed in this role of being in the Big 12. It's fun. This is what the fans have wanted. It's what the players have wanted, what the program has wanted. Now it's here, and it's exciting.
What's the challenge of going against a guy like Rocco Becht?
Yeah, he's an excellent passer, very good scrambler, very good runner. They have QB design run stuff that they love to as well. So I think he's, at the end of the day, in my opinion, probably the most complete quarterback in the Big 12 that we're going to be facing. Maybe Cincinnati's guy, there might be an argument for him. But this guy he can make every throw, and he sees things very well, throws things on time, doesn't get sacked very often. O-line does a good job protecting him. Plus, then they have a run game, that helps them, throw shots down the field. So it's a scheme that they've had a ton of success with, obviously with the head coach being an offensive guy and an O-line guy. I mean, they know their stuff, and this quarterback's been in the system now for 3 years, so it's going to be a challenge. This will be, I think, by far and away the best offense we've seen all year, as far as just a complete offense that can run the ball at a high level but also throw the ball at a high level. And so it'll be a great challenge for our defense. We're excited to see how it's going to go.
Yeah. Does their scheme remind you of anybody in particular?
I mean, I would say kind of similar to Stanford in the way that we played. That we played earlier in the season, similar to Stanford. They love to use tight ends, so we're going to see a bunch of tight ends throughout the game and a bunch of different personnel groupings. And so I think the running backs I think they have 2 of the best running backs we'll see all year, and so 3 or 4 of the best tight ends we'll see all year, and some receivers outside. I mean, they got great personnel. They've done a great job recruiting. We really respect these guys, and we know it's going to be a big challenge going into their place on Saturday.
How gratifying as a special teams coordinator to see that phase of the game performing as well as it has?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, I'm a little disappointed we haven't got any touchdowns up to this point.
Okay, fair.
After last year, I don't know if we'll ever exceed that, but that was, we're halfway through the season and not a special teams touchdown yet, but we're not going to, try to worry about that too much. I get reminded of all the time when I go home to my family. My little kids are like, "Hey, Dad, when are we gonna get a punt return or a kick return?" And I was like, "Okay, well, they got a little spoiled last year." But I think that we're playing. I think our punt team's been as good as as good as anybody in the country. Mm-hmm. This last week we gave up a return that wasn't like us, but we'll get back on track this week, I believe. And I just being able to get that fumble in the game was a big deal. Yeah. And the week before getting Parker to set up our offense for a touchdown at the end of the game. And so we just got to continue to do what we do, and that's kind of the message: is we got to play our brand of football. And when we play our brand of football, we'll be hard to beat. But when we get outside of what we're supposed to do and start playing somebody else's brand, that's when we get ourselves in trouble. So we got to play our brand for 60 minutes to give ourselves the best shot to win this game.
That muff punt, I was told it was called like a poison pill ball from Sam. Is it like, does he have specific types of kicks he can make?
No.
Okay.
He told you that he totally mishit that kick and we just got a lucky bounce.
Okay.
I wish I could tell him, "Hey Sam, let's kick a crappy ball right here and see if this guy will muff it." I wish it was that simple. But yeah, it worked out. Sometimes that's what happens, right? Punters hit bad balls, and for us, that just took a good bounce for us. Mm-hmm. And you look at their punt returner, and I coach our guys the same way, where we want to catch everything. We don't want that ball to bounce if we can field it securely, because that ball bounces, now it's going to roll 20, 50, 20 to 25 yards right there. And so, but yeah, it was a tough one to catch, and I'm glad we were able to hop on it, and then our offense goes and scores some points right there. So that was a good deal.
How high of a confidence level do you have in a guy like Will Ferrin?
Yeah, we're extremely confident in Will. I think he's ready at any moment to kick any kick. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get out in that 60-yard range, and he's like, "Hey, coach, are we going to kick it? We're going to kick it." I'm like, "No, we're not going to kick a 60-yarder unless we have to win a game." You know. But he's extremely confident in himself, and I think he feels very good about the operation with the snap and the hold and the protection. And so he's one of the best I've been around as far as mindset and just staying in the moment. He does a great job of that.
Well, Kelly, thanks for the time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
A big thank you, as always, to guys like Kelly Poppinga for joining us here on the podcast. A great chat with him, and he wants touchdowns. He wants to see a special teams unit break through, and to be a great time. If BYU can get a special teams touchdown on the road at Jack Trice Stadium against Iowa State, I would venture to say that is going to help BYU's chances of winning this football game on the road go up a whole significant percentage. We're talking like, 20, 30, 40%, because those special teams touchdowns, they seem to bolster a team when they happen. And BYU, as he mentions, has not had that this year, but got a little spoiled last year. Let's be real. They had a lot of those special teams touchdowns a year ago. But now, speaking of Iowa State, would be a great time to have that be a part of the outcome on Saturday afternoon. All right. So big thank you once again to Kelly for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. A big thank you to BYU Athletic Communications for arranging it. And coming up next, we're going to round out this edition of the show and obviously round out the regular part of the week here on the podcast with our Big 12 big picks. Who do I think is going to win across the Big 12 conference, as well as the top 25 showdowns this weekend in college football? We'll get into that next as you roll on this Locked On Cougars edition right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. Now, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by our friends over at DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players deliver when it mattered most. Let's break it down. So for BYU this past weekend, I'm actually going to go a little bit outside the box. I'm going to give it to BYU's offensive line, because they paved the way for BYU to run for more than 200 yards in that pivotal win over the University of Utah. Kept BYU undefeated, and had those guys not opened the holes that allowed Bachmeier and LJ Martin to run wild, well, they don't do that. So they came through with no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, these performances are not a fluke, because BYU, they're on a streak. There's no doubt about that. And just like the offensive line for BYU delivered for the BYU Cougars, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday that you order. Stack it up all season long. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. It's order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. The promo period runs through 11/18. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel's got an incredible offer for those of you who are watching the NFL like I am. If you are a new customer, you can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Pick a bet, plop down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 to use across the website or on their mobile app. The best part is you can have different ways to play. Parlays, player props, futures odds, in-game. If you're watching a game, you want to bet on the second half or even the first half, they've got all that for you guys available to you from our friends over at FanDuel. It makes watching football that much more exciting when you got a little something extra riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving deep into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. That first $5 bet can net you $300 in bonus bets, and it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not signed up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, what are you waiting for? Get the inside scoop that I'm hearing on all things BYU football, basketball, and quite literally everything in between. So join us today on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Link is in the show notes below. Just $5 a month to be a part of the group. And best part, I call it the kicker, is you get a 14-day free trial, 2 full weeks before you're charged a single penny. So join us today on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right, so before we go on today's show, let's make our Big 12 big picks. And the Big 12 this weekend's got some interesting matchups, obviously. You have the Battle for the Sunflower State kicking things off at 10 a.m. on TNT early tomorrow morning. Now, this is Kansas State, who's had a bit of a resurgence going up against the Kansas Jayhawks. It's being played in Lawrence, obviously a cross-state battle. I am going to roll with the Kansas Jayhawks, even though it seems like every time I've picked against Kansas State this season, they seem to have, proved me wrong. But I do believe that Jalen Daniels and the Kansas Jayhawks will get the job done. They will obviously hold in-state supremacy over the Kansas State Wildcats and hopefully move to 5-3 on the year and keep themselves, in theory, in the Big 12 race with a 3-2 overall record. We've got Texas taking on Oklahoma State. Now, Baron Morton is not expected to play in this game, but I'm telling you, Texas Tech can name their score in this game. This is a get-right game for Tech. They can pretty much name their point total, and Will Hammond should be able to deliver on that. We also have Baylor at number 21, Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati's trying to keep pace with BYU atop the Big 12. Baylor's not going to make it easy on them because Sawyer Robertson is just throwing the ball all over the yard. He has got 2,376 yards already this year, 21 touchdowns against 7 interceptions. That is the best part about what Baylor's got essentially right now is his ability to just torch opposing defenses. If he can go to Cincinnati and show out like he has shown out in multiple other games this year, I give Baylor a fighting chance. But I think Cincinnati comes through in the end and gets the win just by a hair, maybe by a field goal or something like that on their home turf. And in theory, keep themselves right in lockstep with BYU. We have TCU at West Virginia. Okay, now West Virginia's kind of fallen off the cliff proverbially. TCU should win this game and obviously move to 6-2. They'll be bowl eligible and they'll be 3-2 and still obviously just a couple of games back in the Big 12 race. Then we also have Houston at Arizona State. This is an interesting game because Arizona State is coming off a big win over Texas Tech, but give me the Houston Cougars. Yeah, I think Houston with Connor Wigman, they're going to go to Tempe and upset the Arizona State Sun Devils. I don't know why. I just got a feeling the Houston Cougars will get it done. And then in the nightcap, we got Colorado at Utah. Now, we don't know the status of Devin Dampier. Kyle Whittingham is playing his games once again with the status of his quarterback position. Wow. Year in and year out, this seems to be a routine thing. I am expecting Bird Ficklin to play in this game. Does that mean that I think that Utah's going to struggle? I think that they'll struggle to obviously get him in sync very, very quickly. But I think that Utah does just enough to beat Colorado on their home field at Rice-Eccles Stadium. It is one of the premier home field advantages in the Big 12 Conference. I think Utah, just like by a hair, even though they're rated as a 13.5-point favorite, I don't know what the odds makers know, speaking of FanDuel, that I don't know. But I think Utah gets the job done. Maybe it's a point, maybe it's 3 points, but I think Utah gets the win, and they go to 6-2 on the year. And we'll see how it all shakes out because I think the Big 12 race, it's going to be an interesting one this year because all these teams, like I said, are all kind of within 2 games of one another, and we'll see where it pans out. But this weekend could provide clarity, or it could provide a whole lot of anarchy in the Big 12 Conference. Now, nationally, a couple of games I wanted to talk about. UCLA seemingly can't lose all of a sudden. They're headed to number 2 Indiana. Kurt Signetti has turned the Indiana Hoosiers into just an absolute juggernaut. I fully expect Indiana is going to win this game, but I don't think it's by much. They have Indiana as a 26-point favorite, according to FanDuel. I don't know why. Maybe the luck runs out. The LRO, according to what our friends at Solid Verbal like to call it, LRO game for UCLA. I think UCLA is going to hang tough in this game, but I do think Indiana gets the win in the end. We have number 8 Ole Miss and number 13 Oklahoma. Now, Ole Miss, I've been absolutely intrigued by. Trinidad Chambliss is an incredible story. Ferris State part-time starter, comes to Oxford, Mississippi, and has emerged as like the superstar quarterback. They are on the road at Gaylord Family Memorial Stadium out there in Norman, Oklahoma. I have picked against John Mateer and the Oklahoma Sooners a lot this year, and I'm picking against them once again. Give me the Ole Miss Rebels to get the win on the road in that matchup. I'm interested to see how that one goes down. We also have a big game in the American Conference. I very rarely do another G5 game, but number 18 South Florida, who's figuring to be the kind of the odds-on favorite to play in the college football playoff, well, they face off against Memphis, who is also 6-1 in the American Conference, and Memphis, they're no slouch. This could be a big upset, but I think that, give me the Memphis Tigers to win on their home turf and obviously throw South Florida for a little bit of a loop because that probably dropped them out of the top 25 and keep that race in terms of who's going to be playing in the college football playoff for the G5 ranks, obviously in a G6, I should say. In all kinds of turmoil. I think Tulane with Jake Retzloff still very much in that hunt, and we'll see where it ultimately lands. We also have number 15 Missouri at number 10 Vanderbilt. I love the Diego Pavia story. I know he's got a lot of bravado. I know he may turn some people off. I think Vanderbilt on their home turf with College Game Day in Nashville, Tennessee, they get the job done. I think Vanderbilt wins on their home turf, and I think that is it for the games I wanted to pick this weekend. Oh, one other one, excuse me. Texas A&M, number 3 in the country, at number 20 LSU. I'm not going to say that it's going to be a game that could lose Brian Kelly his job, but I'm also not saying that. Here's the thing. Texas A&M has been absolutely soaring under Mike Elko, but for some reason, places like LSU, Baton Rouge, Death Valley are where dreams go to die. Brian Kelly gets a big win. I'm calling it an upset right now. LSU beats Texas A&M, knocks the Aggies from the ranks in the unbeaten, and Brian Kelly lives to fight another day. I might be wrong about that, but give me the LSU Tigers. Go Tigers, to use the Coach O idiom from back in the day. All right, so there you go. That's my picks for the weekend, but that's going to do it for today's edition of the show. Looking forward to BYU and Iowa State. We'll have a postcast edition coming up shortly after this game goes final. I actually don't have any radio responsibilities as of now, so we should have to go live with postcast pretty quickly after this one goes final. So stay tuned for that coming up tomorrow afternoon/evening when this game goes final. But once again, I've got BYU 31, our good friends in Iowa State 24, and BYU gets to 8-0 entering their bye week. We'll have plenty of coverage throughout the upcoming bye week and beyond with the Locked On Cougars podcast. So as always, as I always say, thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and come back again tomorrow in our postcast edition and be an everydayer with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.